when Pope Francis had been here, but since that time that I was here last fall and this fall, the choir from Christopher Dock came to our church to perform a wonderful concert before they took off for Europe this past summer. So it was always great to kind of make that a reciprocal effort and so forth. I'm here today to talk about Saint Teresa of Calcutta. It was a wonderful, wonderful woman and a unique person who probably lived a life that nobody else could ever imagine having lived. And so we're going to start talking about who she was as an individual first. And is it possible to put up the first slide, please? There. Okay. Saint Teresa of Calcutta. There you go, thank you. If you look at this, this is a pretty good overview slide. It's actually entitled Mother Teresa to be canonized. If you look to the top left corner, you see August 26, 1910, Mother Teresa was born Agnes Goldshot, which is her name, and she was born in Skopje, Macedonia, which is actually Albania today. And do we have anybody here from Albania? There you go, all right. I was told that there were some Albanian students here, so there you go. So right there, yes, she was born in 1910. And she realized that as a young girl, that she really felt God calling her to mission and to ministry in some capacity. And of course, as a young child, she really wasn't sure how that was going to work out. But when she was 18, she decided that she would leave her family, and she entered a Catholic religious group of nuns called the Loretto Sisters. And they were an Irish group of sisters, and so Mother Teresa traveled from Albania to Dublin, Ireland, where she began to study with these sisters. A very unique sideline here is the fact she left Albania when she was 18 years old. And you probably would study in social studies the reality of communism, which was very much in effect at this time. Mother Teresa never, ever saw her parents again the rest of her life. Subsequently, shortly after she left, her father had died. Her mother lived to be a relatively older woman. But Albania, the communism in Albania would not allow Mother Teresa's mother to leave the country to meet with her. As much as she ended up being a world-renowned person, they would not allow her mother to leave to meet her. And if Mother Teresa would go home to see her mother, they would never allow her out of the country again. And so therefore, she'd have to give up on the wonderful ministry that she served people around the world. So in fact, after having left her family at the age of 18, she never saw her parents again. After communism was resolved in that part of the world, she actually got to meet her brothers and sisters again, but her mother had died before that time and so forth. So then in January 1929, after studying in Ireland with the Loretto sisters, they sent her to teach in Calcutta. And so at that point, Mother Teresa was a sister of Loretto, and she was teaching in a private girls' school. I don't claim to necessarily know all the social guidelines there in India, but we know that it was developed as a caste system. And a caste system were those who had and who belonged in the higher caste, and those who had not. There were no low caste, and there was no way you could travel from the lower caste to the higher caste. Mother Teresa was teaching in a private school. The wealthy people in India, she was teaching in a private school where the girls would go to school. She had a decent life, and she was there for many, many years. I think this tells us that she was there for almost 20 years. So she would have a safe place to stay. She would have a clean place to stay. Things would be organized, things would be structured. She would have good meals. She'd have a nice house to stay in and so forth with the other sisters. And so she taught there up until 1950. She tells this story is that, of course, trains were a very strong mode of transportation. And so she was taking a train to go and retreat one day. And as she was taking this train, she literally saw these people lying in the gutters in the streets of India. And she was moved with great passion to do something for them. And so with that insight into her mind, she felt God calling her to attend to these poor people who were in the streets. And And we have poverty here in the United States, but that's the type of poverty that one can never really imagine because it is so dire. It's really very, very difficult to even look at the way some of the situations where these people would have lived. And so she felt moved and called to be able to leave the confines of this nice convent, good meals, safe environment, structured life, to go to attend to the poorest of the poor in the streets of India. And so she walked out the doors of the convent and she would end up walking the streets. We recognize, you see in that picture there, the blue and white habit that Mother Teresa wears. It actually just represents one of the normal saris, which is the garb of the Indian woman. The blue lines on the white garment represents blue for the Blessed Mother, which we would believe as being the mother of Jesus. Mother Teresa had a great devotion to the Blessed Mother, and so she chose that color blue to mark her sari, her habit. She went out by herself. She found somebody that would give her a room to live in, and she only had literally a few pennies in her hand when she went forth to try to start serving the people of India. And she caused a lot of difficulty because people didn't understand how someone could just give up everything and go and help the poor. They were very suspicious of her. They thought that she was trying to do something else other than just serve the poor, but really that's all she was doing. Shortly after she began this, some of the girls who were in the school where she was teaching and loved her very much recognized the work that she was doing as very powerful. And so they chose to follow her and become sisters in her religious community. Now, of course, these were the daughters of the wealthy people of India. And so their parents were not happy with this idea at all. And many times tried to stop the girls from following Mother Teresa, but they did not. And they were the first of the sisters who actually followed her and to be able to continue to minister to the poor. You see here in 1979, Mother Teresa was recognized internationally to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And it was very prominent because it recognized the great work that she did internationally. Yes, she was a very short lady. She was only between 4'8" and 5'2" her entire life. And though she was a small presence, she was a huge person, or a small person, she was a huge presence. Because when she walked into a room, people realized what a great passion she had for serving the poor. And so therefore, internationally, the Nobel Peace Prize was given to her in 1979. In 1997, as she was serving in Calcutta, she actually died. She suffered for decades with a bad heart. And so all the different places she went all around the world, she would always have to have the medical attention of being able to have someone with her to be able to help her with her heart problems and so forth. So it is amazing that she was able to live to be 87 with the difficult heart that she had and the very strenuous work that she continued to do throughout her entire life. In 2003, Pope John Paul II beatified Mother Teresa, which means it's the step from going to sainthood. It's one of those steps going to sainthood to recognize the fact that there was a miracle that was attributed to her intercession, and with the one miracle, she was beatified, and that's when our parish was established in 2006 under the title of Blessed Teresa of Calcutta, and then the Vatican did recognize another miracle for the intercession of Mother Teresa, and so then on September 4th of this year, she was canonized and became a saint of the church, and so therefore, the name of our parish changes to Saint Teresa of Calcutta. If you look here across the bottom, that explains a little bit about that the diocese who starts where she lives has to submit the paperwork to the Vatican about the question of her becoming a saint. She first then becomes venerable, then blessed, and then a saint. And then the Pope confirms one miracle and then confirms the second miracle. As we realize that Mother Teresa went all throughout the world, lifting up the needs of the poor in so many ways. Calcutta has horrible situations for the poor and those who are ill. But around the world, Mother Teresa was able to establish homes and hospitals to assist those in need. One of the things that she was most known for, too, was her, particularly there in India, was her care for the lepers. Because as in many cultures, the lepers were outcasts for fear that other people would catch the disease. And so therefore Mother Teresa had a great need and a great ministry to be able to care for the lepers. As much as Calcutta is a whole lot different than our culture here in the United States, Mother Teresa also established many homes here in the United States. Right here where we are today, the closest would be in Norristown. Many of you probably know where Norristown is. It is the county seat for Montgomery County. And there's a home there that attends to the homeless and the poor by giving them food and giving them care for their families and so forth. There's also another one of these homes in Chester. We know that Chester and Norristown would have a large population of people that live under the poverty level and so forth. And so those needs are being attended to here right in our local community. Interestingly enough, that Mother Teresa never really wanted to live with any type of glamour in any way. So it was a strange story when Mother Teresa was establishing her convent in Norristown that they wanted to get the house ready for them. They put in new carpets, they painted the walls, they got new furniture. Mother Teresa came and she said, rip up the carpets, they got rid of the furniture, they used old furniture because she just wanted the sisters to live in basic needs and so forth. They slept on small cots on the floor. They would only eat the food that was given to them to eat and so forth, that was donated to their to serve the needs of others. So Mother Teresa has been able to not only attend to the poor in Calcutta, but around the entire world. One of her great qualities is that as much as she was a Catholic nun, she realized that her ministry to the, as she would claim, the poorest of the poor was something that was universal, and her other universal element was her openness to all people of different religions. Obviously, India would have different types of religions. There would be Buddhist, there would be Hindu and so forth, and Muslims, and she didn't care what a person's religion was, that she was still attentive to them, she would care for them, and so forth, and be able to bring them into their home. So Mahatma Gandhi, who was obviously from India, another great peacemaker throughout the history of the world, and Mother Teresa were very close in their mentalities of being able to bring peace to one another and so forth, and to the world. If we could put the next slide up, please. This is a picture of Mother Teresa as a young girl before she left to become a sister of Loretto. And again, she would have lived with her brother, her sister, and her parents in Albania until the time she was 18 and left for the convent. Go to the next picture, please. This is Mother Teresa as a Loretto sister when she was working in Calcutta. We say she did this for 20 years. She taught, again, the wealthy Indian girls who were there in this very prestigious private school. Okay, next picture. This is the work that she left the Loretto sisters to do. She would literally walk along the streets and find people who were hungry. She would find people who needed medical attention. And though really being a rather small woman, often she would just pick up people and move them. Because by that time, there really wasn't much left to the person. They were literally just skin and bones. And whether it was a need to be able to take them to be fed and to be nurtured back to health, or one of the things that she was wonderful for was taking someone who was in the gutters and taking them into a place where they were to die. And she started these wonderful homes and so forth there in Calcutta, one for a hospital, one for those who were dying. There was a home for the dying. And one of her quotes is that her ministry was always based on, for those people who spent their lives living like animals, that her mission was to allow them to die like angels. And this is a concept that none of us could probably ever imagine. But if you could imagine being conscious, laying in the gutter, and God knows what trash and filth is in the gutter, and you lay there day in and day out, 24 hours a day, and people are walking by, and you're getting kicked to dust and so forth, and whenever it rains, the mud's all over you, you are laying there like that for years. Because maybe you're so sick you can't get up, you can't move, and that's your existence. And so right before you're about to die, this Mother Teresa, or those who work with her, would pick this person up and take to this home for the dying. And the first thing that they would do is that they would wash the person. Because obviously they're a mess. They've been living in dirt and filth for all these years. And they would wash the person and clean them up because they felt when they felt clean, they had dignity. And her whole thing was that she wanted everyone who was going to die to at least die with that dignity of being a child of God and of being a human being. She saw in that person lying in the gutter something that most people would never see. She was challenged by a wealthy businessman from the Western culture. And he said to her, "Mother, you couldn't give me $10,000 to touch those people." And she says, "I won't touch them for $10,000 either. But for the love of God," she says, "I'll clean up every single one of them." Because that's how unreal her passion was for caring for people and giving them that great dignity. Let's see what we're next. This is my fault about the slides. Again, this looks like this young boy is so sick. And she finds him living in the street. She sees a stone wall and so forth, and he's just laying there. And this is the work that she, her sisters, and all of those who've come to work with her. So there are a number of lay people who give up their lives to go to minister with Mother Teresa and her sisters in Calcutta to be able to attend to the poor and to the sick. Can I have the next slide, please? This is President Reagan. Again, Mother Teresa's recognition for the work that she did was across the board. It was around the world. It was recognized by people all over the world, and great dignitaries. So her life, she would run into these people, and when she was there talking to President Reagan, it was not about what she can get out of it, or not the fact that she was having a picture taken with the president. She was no doubt asking him to do something for her. To do something for her poor people, her sick people, the outcasts, all of those types of things. She barely ever met anyone that she didn't stop and ask from them something to help those who were in need. The next picture. This is Princess Diana. A unique image. I always find the pictures of these two women to be very unique, because you probably can't find two people that look so different but have such a common mentality and mission in their lives. Princess Diana, for all the work that she's done, she traveled throughout Africa, she traveled throughout all the different parts of the world, helping those who were outcasts, who were in need, those who were hungry. And Mother Teresa did the exact same thing. Princess Diana was this tall, gorgeous woman. Mother Teresa was this short, simple, not so attractive woman and so forth, but they had such a powerful message that they both spoke the same message, even though they were that different. And uniquely enough, they died within days of each other. It was shortly after Princess Diana's death that Mother Teresa also died. And the next picture. This is Mother Teresa receiving her Nobel Prize in 1979. And again, it was she had challenging words that she gave to the people who gathered there, because she knew it was an international stage, and the words that she had to proclaim were words that were going to talk about how we had to attend to the needs of the poor, those who were outcast, those who were sick, those who were infirm in any way, and how we had a responsibility to do that. So she took advantage of that platform, not to speak about herself, but for the needs of other people. Can we see the next one, please? This is obviously Mother Teresa with Pope John Paul II. They were very, very strong allies and so forth, and good friends, mutually respectful of the great work that both of them was doing. Obviously, the Holy Father had such a great national platform by being the Holy Father and being so powerful. What he did, traveling around the world, attending to the needs of others, but he also knew that Mother Teresa was the one who was out there in the gutters and in the slums, taking care of people, and actually she was actually doing the work that Pope John Paul II preached about and talked about that we needed to do as Christians. The next. This picture was only taken 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. This obviously is Pope Brandt, and this is taken in St. Peter's Square, which is right outside of St. Peter's Basilica, the big basilica which is in Rome. And once this was at the canonization, and after the canonization took place, Pope Francis went around in his Pope-mobile to the crowds that were there, and this was in St. Peter's Square. On the left side, please. This is St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. This is the front of it. Obviously, you can't see the rest of it. But this is the tradition that when a person is canonized as saint, this tapestry is there in front of the basilica. And so this is the tapestry that was there. I had the privilege of being there for the canonization, and it was the whole basilica, or the plaza, was packed with people. And Mother Teresa was the only saint being canonized that day. It's not always the case, but we're very fortunate that she was the only one that was being canonized that day. And the Holy Father was very, very pleased to be able to recognize the importance of Mother Teresa's life. Mother Teresa and Pope Francis have very common ideologies also too, in caring for the poor and caring for those who are outcast and so forth. And so again, this was the picture that was there. Mother Teresa's basic mentality and her philosophy of life was very simple. She talked about the simplicity of getting along with one another. One of her great quotes is, "Peace begins with a smile." Peace begins with a smile. It doesn't get much more simple than that. She always described that I am only a pencil in the hand of God. She used a simple analogy that any child in the school can understand as a pencil, and that she believed that God was writing his will in this world through her, and she was just a pencil in his hands. She would say that we are called upon to be Jesus to everyone we meet, and to see Jesus in everyone we meet. Sounds nice, not easy, trust me, because the everyones and the every people are the people that we meet every day. She obviously, once moving out of Calcutta, then moving into the Western world, she said that one of the problems that she'd seen, that one of the greatest challenges to the Western world was the deterioration of family life. And that, people were so busy, they couldn't pay attention to their kids, they couldn't pay attention to one another. And her challenges to families, and when they started talking about how you're supposed to spread Christianity to one another and how we're supposed to touch people's lives, she was very insistent to say, start at home. Start at home caring about one another, paying attention to one another, listening to one another. Because that's where everything begins, in the home. And so that therefore, it's the parents respecting one another, parents respecting their kids, kids respecting their parents, all of those wonderful ways in how we treat one another. She said that she had been all over the world. She had seen people that suffered from horrible things throughout her world. And she said the loneliest place that she had ever been was in a nursing home in the United States. Her challenge there was the fact that being in a nursing home in the United States, that so many of these old people were just outcast from their families. People just forgot about them because it wasn't easy to communicate with them, or they had great difficulties and challenges they were facing. So people just put them in a nursing home and left them there. So she would challenge the Western world, she would challenge so many people to be able to do those types of things that even here in the United States have to be looked at. I know we're working on time here. How about if anybody has any questions for me about Mother Teresa? Anything? I don't claim to be an absolute expert, but I know some things and so forth. Any questions? Yes?
Could you just describe the two miracles that you...
Yeah, the first miracle was a woman in India who was cured of an abdominal tumor. And the second one was a man who I can't remember where he was from and so forth, and he also had a cancerous tumor that he was cured from. And so, really, the Vatican had a very complex process where it goes through medical doctors and testimonies and all that stuff of these miracles being documented. Somebody just can't say, oh, I'm feeling a lot better because I prayed to Mother Teresa who counted as a miracle. This is a process that goes on for years to verify and to validate the fact that this actually was a real miracle. And a miracle is the suspension of normal science laws. It's when something in science does not make sense according to what we know. And so that's where it would be a miracle. Any other questions about that? Yes?
This isn't necessarily about Mother Teresa in particular, but in order to be ordained a saint, are you supposed to are you supposed to remain chaste or not get married? Or
oh no, there are a lot of saints who have been married, who are parents and who are husbands and wives and so forth, and go on to being saints. And she happened to be a religious woman, so she chose chastity to live out her life, and so it's through that her ministry that way as a religious sister that she goes to sainthood. But there are a number of saints who are either husbands and wives and so forth, and mothers and fathers. And yeah, good question. Good question. Any other questions? Some of the things that Mother Teresa was always so powerful about was talking about the importance of getting along with one another and being vehicles of peace. There's a wonderful movie that was out, I guess it came out maybe a year ago. It's called The Letters, and it's based on letters that Mother Teresa had written to a priest over the many years of her ministry. And so it's done extremely well. It tells the great story of Mother Teresa from the time that she was a Loretto sister teaching in the girls' school in Calcutta. It talks about her leaving that life and tending to the poor in the streets. It shows the example of the girls who would follow her, become her first sisters and so forth, and the great challenges that she faced in being able to do good work. You would think sometimes that being able to do good work is something that would be respected by others, and it wasn't. She faced great challenges in that and so forth. So I know you've got a schedule to keep and kind of wrapped up the things I need to say, so I want to thank you for having me back again today. It's always a pleasure coming here.
Quote by Mother Teresa in her life. She says something like, "You can do no great things, only small things with great love." And I think it's in that spirit that we go out in service on Friday, doing small things like pulling weeds, sorting clothes, playing with kids, cutting wood, whatever we're doing on Friday, let's do it with great love, in the same spirit that Mother Teresa did in her ministry. Classes begin in 5 minutes.